everyone, welcome to Flavor Talk with the Barbecue Pro Shop Factory team. I am Brian Neal, aka Mr. Freak of Smoke Freaks Barbecue.
And I'm Ann Neal, Ms. Freak. Together, we're the tongues and testers of the Barbecue Pro Shop Flavor Guide. And joining us is our partner in flavor going all the way back to 2019, Jeff Belmonte from Barbecue Pro Shop. Hey, Jeff.
Hi, everybody. So great to be here tonight. Really excited to be able to be talking so much tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different from our usual format. So instead of Ms. Freak and I interviewing a special guest, we are actually going to be on the hot seat, and Jeff's going to grill us about the 2023 essential seasonings list.
Wait, what? Jeff's going to grill us?
Yeah, what?
Or smoke you, one of the ways. We're going to do it one way or the other, but that's for sure. But we got a lot of great stuff to talk about. People are already logging on and commenting, which makes it even more fun. We're looking to get real interactive tonight. So
I should probably introduce our additional guest here, our cat, who is
seems to want to come to all of these now.
She insists on joining us. It is a very special edition of Flavor Talk, and she's 20 years old, so we let her do what she wants. And timely as it should have it, just the other night, our cat literally stole a piece of chicken from Mr. Freak's dinner plate. It was seasoned with Old Arthur's Gold Dust.
One of the 2023 essential seasonings. So, hey, folks tuning in. Scott and Artie, how you doing? Robert, what's up? Blazing Star is in the house, and Willingham's, along with others that just show up as unknown users. So, hello, unknown users.
This is great. Well, we're really excited to kick this off. Really excited.
Yes. So, we are going to be doing a nice deep dive into this fantastic batch of seasonings that made this year's essential seasonings list. So, Jeff, take it away. What do you want us to tell the world about our fantastic list?
Well, I first of all think we should give people some context of what is the essential seasonings list to the Barbecue Pro Shop Factory team and the Smoke Freaks. Tell us a little bit more about how you came up with this great idea.
Yeah, so what's the essential seasonings list?
So it is a collection of amazing flavors that really stood out in all of the hundreds of tests that Mr. Freak and I have done for the Barbecue Pro Shop Flavor Guide in 2023.
And I'll tell you what, it's not. It's not meant to be like, these are the best rubs in the world. I don't think we could even produce a list like that with, 400 different things that we've tested at this point. They're all great for different reasons on different things. But the essential seasonings list is made up of all the things we tested this year and started to get really super familiar with. And as we were going along, we make some notes about which ones really, really pop and stand out to us and become for us the it rubs of the summer or of the season that we end up reaching for time and time again.
So this is really more about the things that really stood out for them. How many did you taste in 2023? Just to give the folks here an idea.
Oh gosh.
General.
Ask the keeper of the list here. How many?
Yeah, in total to date, since the introduction of the flavor guide, which I think we'll get into a little bit, we are approaching 400 seasonings, which is about 80% of the Barbecue Pro Shop catalog. That's a lot of flavor.
Yeah, I would say we're probably testing a couple a week at this point. Yeah. Sometimes we get a little busy out on the competition trail and it kind of falls by the wayside. But in general, we're going, probably 8 a month. That takes us through a few different cooking cycles where we get to try all of these different things. And as we go, we're collecting a bunch of notes. We collect 24 different data points on every different seasoning that we test. And in any given format, if it just blows us away, we put a little X in a special little column that tells us to come back and look at that one later for other purposes, such as the essential seasonings lists. And, there's other tricks that we've figured out over the last couple of years to help us pick these seasonings, because our first pass of just pulling out, which are the ones that we're really using a ton, they stood out as different. they caught our interest. We probably got 20 or 30 in that list at that point, and we still need to whittle this thing down into a manageable list. So Anne came up with a great trick this year where she just pulled them all out and set them on the counter, and we looked to see how much was left in the bottle in each of these things. And in fact, some of these I think we've had to restock. We used them so much.
That's always a good
So
sign.
and we literally have a cabinet with 400 different seasonings in it. So in any given season, if we're going through any bottle of barbecue seasoning, we're really into it and just at the point of putting it on everything.
That's great. And we're going to get to more of some of the ones that are your favorites. And I think that's the thing that I love most about this is how authentic you are about when you're really geeking out about a great flavor or what's really delicious, that those are the ones that end up on this list. So I know that it's really true to form.
Yeah,
So
there's no way that we could produce a list like this if we weren't so deeply involved in this flavor guide thing. And that's what, really gives us the expertise and the know-how to be able to taste a given product, understand what it's all about, and be able to kind of connect it to the past, things that have come before it, classic rubs and AP rubs and all of that, but also pick out what's really setting it apart from the other things that are on the shelves these days.
And I'd add that in the early days of the flavor guide, when we had, I don't know, 25, 50, 100 seasonings or something like that, it was, fairly easy to identify these are the standouts. Well, now that we're approaching 400, that gets a little harder and harder. There's just so many rubs out there and they're different. So these ones that are standing out really, there's something special. And, if you were to build like the world's most amazing seasoning cabinet and you just had 10 to pick, these are the ones that we'd recommend out of 2023 testing.
Yeah, I like to call it my deserted island kit for this year. So if you're going to throw me on an island for a month and the island's full of tasty animals, these are the products that I want to bring along with
Not
me.
just animals, vegetation.
Good point.
Yep.
Yeah,
For sure.
I would
whatever
say at
comes
least
your way, huh?
half of this list that we put out this year is in the kitchen on a regular basis on the counter going into the stuff that we're making for dinner. We're super busy, so we can't always be barbecuing or grilling, and we do a lot of stuff in sheet pans in the oven. Just it's so easy to cook that way once you figure out the timing of how long's a carrot cook compared to a piece of chicken. It's a super easy way to eat reasonably healthy, and for us we're always keeping it interesting because we've got such great flavor know-how to be able to mix it up and know what's going to go with what.
Absolutely. So I think since we're going to be talking primarily about it and it's all really about the flavor guide, why don't you tell the folks here a little bit more about it? Maybe something they don't know or don't realize about it, but explain to them what the flavor guide is, a little bit of background on how we came up with it and why it's so important to Barbecue Pro Shop and the Barbecue Pro Shop factory team.
Yeah, I'll start. Essentially, the flavor guide is the world's first seasoning decoder for barbecue and grilling rubs and seasonings. It's only available at Barbecue Pro Shop. Mr. Freak will get us through kind of how it came to be, but I'll tell you, we essentially break down 4 flavor dimensions for different dry rubs and seasonings: salt, sweet, savory, and heat. We also provide some recommendations on best ways to use it. And then we do a little bit of a he said, she said breakdown of what stood out to us in our testing. So those 3 elements make up the flavor guide, again, only at Barbecue Pro Shop.
Yeah, and the origin story. 4 years ago, I never would have imagined that we would be involved with something like this. Go back to 2019, and we were just so deeply involved with competition barbecue. We were out almost every weekend of the summer, and even into fall and spring. So it got to be to where our life was basically scheduled constantly. We know what comp we'd be at on Saturday, and we knew on Wednesday we'd be chasing kale
Wednesday
or whatever
shuffle.
it was.
Wednesday shuffle.
The Wednesday shuffle. And then all of a sudden, spring of 2020 came along, and the whole world had changed quite profoundly, especially for us. Instead of ramping up for to start the spring comps and gear up for Westmont competition, all that, we found ourselves basically locked in my mom's basement down in my old bedroom. We were kind of helping her recover from the loss of my dad and getting her through the beginnings of the pandemic. And, we were just kind of at a loss with what we were going to do with our time and what we were going to do with our barbecue energy. And at this point, I mean, even the retail stores were closed. We were in Kansas City, we're surrounded by great barbecue places. And in March, these places hadn't been declared essential businesses, they were closed. We couldn't get any seasonings other than what we could get at the grocery store and what my mom had in her spice cabinet. And tell you, if y'all's mom's like my mom, some of those things are kind of old and lacking much flavor that they may have originally had. So, we've got all this time, we're stuck, we're spinning our wheels, and maybe most importantly to the genesis of this thing is this was meant to be the second year of our partnership with you, Jeff. The first year, it was more of a traditional barbecue sponsorship where we'd fly the flag and drive the barbecue pro shop flag and drive all over the country and try and win trophies. And all of a sudden we're sitting here going, well, we've got this agreement to be the barbecue pro shop factory team, but there's nowhere for us to go. We need to find a way to deliver value for this partnership that we're in. And Ann and I both come from a content background. On my end, it's always been about trying to deliver the most useful information to an audience in the most useful way. So as we kind of leaned on that background, we had this epiphany that, as we're trying to restock some barbecue seasonings in March of 2020 online, that there's really no way to know what you're buying unless you've tried it before. All the labels basically say the same thing. It's great on everything. Oh, and it's got salt in it, maybe some sugar, definitely some spices. They all look the same on paper, so to speak. But, until you can actually hold that bottle in your hand, maybe crack the lid open and smell what's going on there, you don't really have an idea of how that's going to hit. And then not until you really start getting into cooking with it and tasting it, do you know how those four dimensions of flavor that make up basically the entire world of barbecue and grilling seasonings are going to come together. So that was how we got the thing started, just as a general idea. But we had an awful lot of work to do before we could actually actualize it, operationalize it. And the first thing we had to do was to learn how to taste flavors. Even though we'd been in the competition game for years, we had never really focused on training our tongues like the way you would learn in a wine tasting class.
We took a lot of inspiration from the wine tasting world.
Yeah, we had never done it, but we're stuck in front of a computer
I've tasted wine.
You've tasted an awful lot of wine. I guess that's true. I shouldn't discount your experience, Miss Freak. But we just researched online, like, how do you learn to be a sommelier? What's a wine tasting class all about? How do you learn to isolate flavors? And so we started applying those same techniques to barbecue rubs to learn how to isolate things. And so, we've got some special tricks that we use that help really blow out all the flavors that are packed into those little jars and separate them from each other. But part of the testing is always putting it on food, cooking it over fire, and seeing what the final product is really going to be. But that's how the whole thing got started. Then, we spent maybe 3 or 4 months doing market research, talking to people in the barbecue world about what would help them shop and find seasonings online. And that really gave us the framework of what we were going to try and develop. From there, it was just a matter of building a system that would allow us to do this at scale, which is something I do in my day job, so to speak. So that was kind of the fun part once we, went through the agony of learning how to taste salt and come up with a scale where she and I could agree and make sense of our varied palettes of taste and flavor. So flash forward about 9 months from there, I think it was, we did the first huge drop of seasonings. We had a little over 100 in the first drop around the end of 2020. And that's when the flavor guide was born as a barbecue pro shop exclusive content thing that we hope can help people all over the world, no matter how or where they're shopping for their seasonings, find new stuff that they like, find things that can pair together to create specific types of balances or effects, Maybe you need to add heat to your favorite spice bill of goods. Maybe you need to remove some heat. It's really meant to give you the tools to be able to do all that, or even just more simply, what is a particular a particular rub best to put on. So all of our testing helps us sort that stuff out.
And it's also a fantastic merchandising opportunity for the awesome makers of these flavors. You've seen on the screen, Jeff is posting some comments from folks like Kyle and Paul and Mike and other, guys. Udell is probably joining. These are the guys who, we really want to merchandise these flavors and help folks understand Barbecue Pro Shop is a great site to check out what you can expect from these flavors and learn about them in a way that no other site really can do.
Yeah, one thing, if for everyone listening, I'm sure you know this. Once you're into barbecue family, it is your family, and you come to love these people and want to support them in any way that you can. And this just seemed like something that we were uniquely positioned for, to be able to add a service to the industry that helps the people making the products and selling them, and helping the people who are wanting to buy them. And we work really hard not to play favorites, even though I've definitely got the rubs I will reach for time and time again. We have to keep an open mind and taste everything that comes our way and give it a fair shake.
A fair shake.
Look at me, another pun. That's
No
two
pun
two good
intended.
puns today. But
That's a good place to ask it. And maybe you can tell him a little bit. I think that Marty, when we had Marty Plute on, he was really amazed at the fact that this was a blind taste test. That you get that rub deal that people have seen on social media, and you then, you don't even know what you're tasting. Tell everybody a little bit the process behind how flavor testing works.
Yeah, for sure. So flavor testing is, and if you know us as smoke freaks, Mr. and Ms. Freak, smoke freaks, from our competition days, you probably know that we have a specific way of doing things. So we're freaks for details. Yes, we're control freaks. So we are all about a systematic way of being able to replicate testing that we can do over and over and over again consistently. So the first thing that we realized when doing flavor testing is we can't know what these flavors are. I mean, if the label says sweet and we know that, our brains are going to, park this notion of sweet, and that's going to come through the testing that we do. So in order to be unbiased and impartial, we literally have labels over the shakers. They are labeled with code names, A392 or whatever. And that is how we do the testing. We replicate the same testing environment, the same place in our home where we sit with our computers and sample the pork chops that we do, cooked on the same cooker and the same temperature and grill temperature and internal temperature when we pull them, so that we can assess them in cooking with it. We sample 3 different ways. Cooking with it is a big part of that. Mr. Freak and I both do the testing. 24 different data points for each seasoning that we test. We have a big spreadsheet, no shocker to those that know us, where we capture all of our inputs. We score them, and we also make notes, raw notes, just first impressions from our testing. And then, only then, after all the data is in, do we, take the blind off the shakers and understand what it is that we've been testing and tasting and enjoying this whole time.
That's my favorite part of the test. It's the very last thing we do is the test on pork chops. And ultimately that's our dinner for the night that night, because we're typically doing 4 at a time when we're cooking on food. So there are 4 different things. We have no idea what they are, and we go through them one by one. Then we finally got all the data we're going to capture. All that's left really to do is pull off the little wrapper that Ann puts on the bottle and unveil what it is. So at that point, we've literally just eaten it. We'll often kind of quiz each other, like, any guesses what you think this is? Because, we have some idea what's in the pipeline and post the rub deals on social media. So I know what was in the box, but it's usually 3 or 4 weeks before those start showing up, and she mixes them up. Like, she'll go from A398 straight to A427. So she really works hard, so you can't know. But I still always am trying to figure it out as we go. Like, oh, I bet it's this one or bet it's that one. And
And
I'm almost never right.
I'll tell you, there was a time when I wondered about, like, will we know what's in the pipeline? Can we identify these? And I don't worry
Yeah,
about
there's
that
no way.
anymore. We have
No
tested
possible way.
hundreds of seasonings over the years, and there is no way that we can identify what's what. In fact, Jeff, you have been known to ask us, hey, because we'll report back to you like, oh my God, I don't know what it was that we had last night, but 389 really was amazing and blah, blah, blah. And you'll say, well, what was it? It was a 389. I don't know. I don't know yet.
I will say in that whole pile, there's probably 5 or 6 that taste an awful lot like Cimarron Docks. Like they must have some lineage in there or something, or maybe they were just trying to copy the
And
greatest.
I think that other part about the fact that you taste everything on pork is a really important distinction, because we don't care if it's beef, it's fish, whatever the maker says it's good on. That has nothing to do with it. You're actually tasting it, and the primary reason is why is it so important that you have to cook
Yeah,
with it?
And
it's
why pork?
specifically pork loin, and there's a couple of practical reasons for that. One is it's readily available for cheap. So, we buy the same product every time. We just go to Costco and get those giant pork loin
Go into
logs
Miles.
that they have, and we cut
Yeah.
them all ourselves. We hand cut them to the exact thickness spec that we want, and trims the fat exactly the same way each time. So there's only a certain amount of that left around the edges. And, when you cook the exact same product over and over again on the same exact grill over and over again, we've just gotten to where we're going to nail the doneness every single time, because it does make a huge difference. If you mess up the cook, we kind of got to throw them out and start over, because if your grill was too hot and you're burning up the sugars that might have been present in the rub, it gets a little bitter. Or if the pork wasn't that good, it affects the overall impact of those seasonings. And we've just got good enough where we can tell that,
We kind of
all
know.
right, Brian blew the cook. We have to redo these.
Way to go, Brian.
Doesn't happen often anymore.
But we know if there's a need to do something again for the sake of the integrity of the flavor guide, absolutely. We're freaks for flavor, so why not test it again?
Everyone who cooks meat knows that no two animals are alike, and every now and then you'll get a hold of something that just for whatever reason isn't that good. It just has an off taste, or it didn't have any fat in it, and
like my last cook of the year on the SCA trail.
Yep. The other thing that's great about pork loin specifically is it doesn't taste like anything. I mean, they have bred all the flavor out of commodity hogs decades ago, so it really does. It tastes so neutral that anything you put on it, it really allows the seasonings to shine, and to you don't have really much competing with it, but you've added a little bit of fat, you've added that heat, and you've added the protein factor that really makes these products do what they're meant to do. And I'm sure everybody listening knows, when you open up a bottle and stick your finger in it and put it in your mouth, you can tell some things about it. You can tell if it's hot, or you can tell if it's sweet, but you really don't know what it's going to end up tasting
Gotta
like.
cook with it.
You got to cook with it. It's really the only way.
That really does make a huge difference in the whole process. And I think, this is really to go beyond that idea of people being able just to stick your finger in it, taste it, see what it tastes like. This is really to give you all 3 of those dimensions in it. And most importantly is do it from a professional standpoint. I think that's the thing.
It's being able to do the same process over and over and over again that makes it work. And when we were in our market research phase for this back in 2020, a couple of folks, including our good friend Ron Gray, told us, he's just like, I think you're biting off a really, really daunting task. I mean, yeah, it's it's a cool idea. You're probably not the first persons to even think about it, but how are you really going to pull that off? And there's something to be said for having a whole year with nowhere to go. We got an awful lot figured out that first year, but now it's just become part of our routine. We'll get up in the morning and we'll often do our flavor tests like first thing in the morning.
Pork for breakfast.
Pork chops for breakfast is awesome. I don't know if you guys aren't already doing that. You're totally missing out. It's the best. And Matt Overson in the house. Hey, Matt.
best part is your neighbors getting to watch you as they drive off for work, and you're sitting there on your porch, doing your flavor
very
guide
best
testing.
thing.
It's the
They're
best.
heading to work. You're cooking on the grill already.
Winning, winning.
That is winning.
All right. Well, this is perfect. And I think we have a really good idea of what goes on. So when we come up with our Essentials 2023 list and we publish it and we put it out there, because we really feel like, as hard as these people work, as all these makers that are on here, and thank you all for being here tonight, it's really important that we just recognize some of the ones that really stood out, because like I said, I put Ann through a grueling process. We laugh about the amount of pork that they've consumed doing this for the last 3 years that we've been doing it. But I think since we're about halfway through our show, we should try to get into the list itself.
Yeah, well, let's get into
So why don't the two of you start to kick it off and talk about these incredible seasonings and why it's so important that you give these things a try.
Okay, yes. So let's start, Ann, with basically, how could we clump up this list? We've got 10 that we've curated out of this list, and we were looking to cover a few themes with all of that.
Why don't we start with naming the list?
All right.
I mean, we know what the list is, and we've got awesome flavor makers on that are,
All right. In no
helping engage
particular
with us.
order. What's on the list, Ms. Freak?
Actually, there is a particular order, and that is alphabetical order by maker, because we're systematic and consistent.
Of course, there's an
So,
order.
all right, the 2023 Essential Seasonings list includes an alphabetical order by maker: Ace's Wild Barbecue, Porky's Palace, Blazing Star Barbecue Reaper, Dr. Barbecue Peach Chipotle, Lane's Barbecue Honey Sriracha, Old Arthur's Barbecue Gold Dust, That's the One Barbecue, Machete, Tuffy Stone Daily Grind, Twisted Steel Barbecue Lime Maloka, Willingham's Barbecue Lost at Sea, and Your Behind Barbecue Green Chili Bacon Rub. Boom.
And some of these are new within the last year, and other ones were just new to us in the last year. They may have been out for a while, but they just entered the Barbecue Pro Shop canon, and maybe we just got our hands on them. But again, we're not trying to say that these are the best rubs you can buy this year, because there's so many great ones. We're saying these are the ones that we really think they deserve a spot in your spice cabinet, because they're doing something awesome, something different, and something that really stood out for us.
They cover all the bases, and they do it really, really well. And, we've got these 10 rubs, and, we kind of like to categorize things again because of that systematic, consistent thing. So when we think about categories and ways to think about the rubs, I like to start with, rubs that are balanced, like Porky's Palace and Lost at Sea. We've got a subset of rubs that are on the sweeter scale, the Peach Chipotle and the Honey Sriracha.
Yep. Sweet always goes with what, everybody? Sweet goes with heat, right? So
Hot
there's
rubs.
some of these that are definitely leaning into hot rub territory. And just a note about heat in our flavor scale ratings. These ratings 1 to 5 are all relative to the barbecue category. So we're not trying to compare, let's say, any one of these products. Ace's Wild, which had the Porky's Palace, has a 3 in heat. What that means is the 3 on a 5 scale means it's pitching right down the center, in terms of kind of the typical range of barbecue and grilling seasonings. We're not trying to compare these things to what's it like if you take a scorpion pepper off the vine and bite into it. That's not how cooking seasonings work, because nobody could buy them. No one could eat them if they were that hot. There are actually a small number of like super scorchers in the catalog. Those are the 5s. Those are the ones that are that far hotter than everybody else, where it's just not even close. But so anything in the 3 zone for heat, that pitches kind of right down the middle, where it's going to be friendly for pretty much any palate. Even kids can handle a 3 in heat.
Yeah.
Once you get into the 4, that's where almost anybody who tastes it's going to go, oh, that's got a little kick to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so as you may know, heat and spice aren't flavors, they're sensations. So when we think about heat, we're thinking about the degree of the sensation that happens to your mouth, to your tongue, to your palate, and how much those tingles happen and how much they overwhelm your senses, whether you need to reach for that glass of cold milk, not beer. Cold milk is definitely the appropriate chaser, and whether that just blows everything out of the water or not. So we've got, some of those rubs that we would put in the hot category. Again, not overwhelmingly, inappropriately hot, good hot. So those are Reaper. We felt peach chipotle was in that category.
Yeah.
The green chili bacon rub to a little bit of a lesser degree. We've got the APs, the all-purpose rubs. Those would be the Old Arthur's Gold Dust, Machete, Ace's Wild, Porky's Palace, and then another category that we would call, and it's not really everything else, it's unique and distinctive, truly stand out.
They don't hit like your typical barbecue rub. They're doing something that's a little bit out in the field compared to what everybody else is doing that, makes them special in their own right.
Daily Grind, Lima Loca, and the green chili bacon rub we put in that category.
The
That's how we
green
think about
chili
them.
bacon rub. Indeed. Yeah, and each one of these, and if you could go out and buy all 10 of these and you would not be disappointed in any kind of overlap because they're all doing very different things in a different way. Even though there's 2 or 3 of these on here where I could say that's a sweet and heat rub, they hit so differently that we reach for them for different times for different reasons.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that gives us all the different areas that we were talking about. And I like the fact that we've been able to break it down that way because there's so many different ways. I think someone said that it was so perfect that there's literally tons of ways to use these things. So let's dig in. Okay. Let's do a lightning round.
Lightning round. All right.
Let's have you put them up. And, let's give us Ms. Freak and Mr. Freak's, take on them and what's your comments on it live on the Flavor Talk. Let's go.
All right. Where do you want to start? Top of the list? Shall we start there with Porky's Palace?
Actually, I'm going to start with this one. This one is closest to me. Whoops. And we've got our cat sitting on things. So Blazing Star Barbecue. And literally my first impression with it for this particular rub was, oh yeah, is that good? I literally wrote those words down on our big spreadsheet. Those are the words from the flavor testing. I also said a couple of things like, that's hot and it's going to get hotter. I can feel it and I like it.
So it's real easy to see why this rub works so well. Its flavor dimensions are a 3-3-3-4. That's salt, sweet, and savory, all perfectly balanced at a 3. And then a 4 for heat, which just makes it lean a little bit hotter. That means when you taste this thing, everything is in very good balance. But when you're done with that first bite, there's that lingering heat that lasts a little bit longer than everything else. And that's exactly what I'm looking for in a barbecue rub. I couldn't wait to put it on ribs. Now I have, so should you. Moving on, what do we got?
Dr. Barbecue's Peach Chipotle.
Oh, this one. All right. I got to say, this one really bugged me at first. And I was doing my flavor testing and I knew it was fruity, but I couldn't figure out what is that fruit. Is it apple? Is it cherry? And it probably came all the way down to our last test where it finally struck me as, oh, it's peach. That's what that is. And I'm a sucker for peach. I didn't grow up in the South, so I didn't get to eat very many good peaches in my life, but I've become a fan since, and it also is a great flavor for ribs. What else?
Well, my first impression when I think about peach chipotle, sweet heat, it's the kind of seasoning we were just talking about, seasonings that we rated a 4 or so on the hot scale, the heat scale. This is the kind of seasoning that gives me those tongue tingles. It's addictive and it kept me coming back for more. What else is it good for? You said ribs, you said chicken, seafood,
chicken wings for sure.
Wings for
100%.
sure. Smoked cream cheese, which is my new favorite thing to do in the world. A lot of these seasonings are great on that. It's such a simple, easy cook.
Make a dip.
Bacon wrapped Oreos. Definitely throw some peach chipotle on that.
Okay. Oh, wow. I'm down for that. Where do you want to go next?
Machete. That's the one barbecue. Lee Coronado. Thank you.
If she had to pick a favorite, and I said, Ann, pick a favorite.
It's not
she
a favorite.
Might pick this.
This is an amazing rub. We don't use words like favorite.
How empty is this bottle?
We're gonna go with the bottle.
This is our second bottle of Machete this year, I believe, and that one's almost down to the wire. I bet we eat it almost every day on something because you're constantly using it in the kitchen.
I do. I use it as an all-purpose rub. I know there's a great deal of pride in the chili peppers, and they're so beautiful. I put this on everything, and when I say everything, I really mean it. Barbecue, whether that's low and slow pork butts, that's been on many a pork butt that we've smoked. I use it a lot in the kitchen. Lee suggested, hey, don't forget the machete in your green bean casserole for Thanksgiving. We did that, and
Did we do that?
we did that. Yeah,
That was
yeah.
some pretty wicked green bean casserole.
We did that, and I like to try and eat a bit healthy when we can. So sometimes that involves Brussels sprouts, and they pretty much suck. But I can tell you, machete on Brussels sprouts is great. And
I like your Brussels sprouts.
that's because there's machete. That's
Maybe
because
that's
there's machete.
why.
And if you can make Brussels sprouts great, I mean, you can make everything great. But we've done some carnitas with machete. We've done it all.
I don't think of that one really as a cooking or a barbecue
Yeah.
rub. To me, it's more of a cooking rub. You can absolutely use it in barbecue, and we do all the time. But it's all of these are just seasonings at the end of the day. But this one has a really, really heavy bill of different kinds of peppers in it. And I'm sure there's different spice blends in the world that do that kind of thing. Like there's a seven peppers Chinese rub, but this feels to me like a southwestern test on a complex pepper blend. We should move on. I could talk about machete all night.
All right. Old Arthur's Barbecue Gold Dust. We had the pleasure of welcoming Udell the fourth to our show, one of the very first flavor guides, flavor talks rather, and we learned a lot about the history of the Old Arthur brand, and we really enjoy cooking with it. If you were joining us at the start of the show and maybe you saw the ears of our cat that was in the frame, our cat stole chicken off Mr. Freak's plate just last night or the night before, that was seasoned with Old Arthur's Gold Dust. My first impression, it's a very light colored seasoning, and I thought, wow, again, we don't know what it is. Like, this looks like pure garlic powder, but boom, there is some
There's a lot
serious
more than that in
flavor
there.
delivery coming through, and that's the white pepper that's part of the blend.
Yeah, I got to take a little pepper sidebar here. So there's really two main forms of heat that you're going to find in barbecue and grilling seasonings. They're capsaicin based, which is your traditional chili pepper. That's a capsaicin based heat, and black pepper and white pepper, which is closely related, is an altogether different kind of thing. It's called peppericin, and they hit a little different. My whole life, I've been a huge black pepper fan. It was just a thing in my family. My dad would always say, "You got to put plenty of pepper on it, or it'll kill you." I remember being a little kid, and he would say that about everything my mom cooked, whether it was true or not. But that's just the way our family was. We used tons of black pepper. So this Old Arthur, the Gold Dust comes around, and I kept getting these huge peppericin heat hits, and I'm not really seeing much black pepper in it. And then Udell told us that there's a bunch of white pepper in it. And since then, I've really come to realize that white pepper is like my new best friend. I've never had it in my cabinet as a standalone seasoning. Didn't really know how to use it, other than I've heard when the fancy people are cooking something that is meant to be white, you don't use black pepper, you use white pepper. Well, okay, whatever. That stuff is a great base rub. We used a ton of it in our whole hog training this year for Memphis in May and Murfreesboro. So we've gone through quite a bit of that, and I'll use that on as base rub on anything. Moving on.
All right. Willingham's World Champion Barbecue, Lost at Sea. So we had the pleasure of joining Paul Holden from the Willingham's team on our show earlier this year. And, our first impressions, or my first impressions with this, were it was exotic, and it was interesting, and it was different, and it was complex, but there was balance. And it was really great once we, did all of our flavor guide testing. The name, kind of implies great on seafood, Lost at Sea, and it is. It's really freaking good on pork chops. We have also used Lost at Sea on smoked duck. So Lost at Sea, some duck.
Yeah,
so really fantastic.
Everything that I've had in the Willingham seasoning line, I would describe them all as a little funky. They've all got you said wild, I'd say funky, just this weird thing going on with it. Kind of like if you've ever tasted a sour beer, if you can think back to the very first time someone stuck a sour beer in your hand and you were expecting whatever you were thinking it was going to be, an IPA or a lager, and then you get that hit and you're just like, what in the heck was that? That was so wild. All of the Willingham products have that impact on me, and I've loved every one of them from first bite. This was the newest one that I've been familiar with, that I was familiarized to, and I really like that it backs off on the salt a little bit. You know, Hannah and I get enough of that with all the flavor testing that we do. So whenever we find a seasoning that's, you know, not a 3 or a 4 in salt, that's one that we're going to reach for a lot to find good ways to use it. And that's not to say salt doesn't have a place in cooking, it does, but I really appreciate when that's not the dominant flavor, because, you know, I can always add my own salt. What you got next, Ms. Freak?
Ace's Wild Porky's Palace from
Oh,
our friends
yeah.
Matt and Craig. Hey guys. So Ace's Wild Porky's Palace. This we rated on the flavor guide scale of 3.333. Perfect.
One of the rare ones
Perfect
with
balance.
a perfect balance. That's probably like 4% of the catalog that is perfectly balanced like that.
And these ones that end up being 3.333s always take a little bit more time on the flavor guide because
they're so hard.
everything is perfectly balanced.
Yeah, you can't isolate what it tastes like, and it just confuses your tongue almost. And in the competition barbecue world, I think a lot of us feel the same way. That's kind of what you're trying to do, is hit them with everything in perfect balance so nobody can pick out something they don't like to beat you over the head with. Because that's what it always feels like to us cooks is, oh, okay, some judge didn't like garlic, so boom, you get beat up for that. And I remember when we got our first taste of this, we met the guys, Craig and Matt, down at World Steak this year back in March, and I think you guys must have just had that coming out of R&D and that at that point, because the bottle didn't have the fancy label. I think it was just a plain clear bottle, and kind of it looked like it looked like a rub deal. All right, it's almost like a trench coat thing. Hey, I want to try this rub I got. Really want to know what you think about it. And so, you know, we did what you can do, standing in a big parking lot. We opened the lid and sniffed it and stuck our finger in there and tasted it. And I remember the first thing I said to Matt is, oh, wow, that is super balanced. And sure enough, it went through all the batteries of tests, came out with the perfect balance. We love Porky's Palace. It's not just for pork. You can use it on a whole lot of things. In fact, Anne would call that a red AP. We've got white APs, red APs. This is a red AP. You want a lot of color. You don't want to upset the balance of maybe another thing that you're trying to mix it with. It's a good place to start as kind of a perfect canvas as you're building out maybe a competition profile. But it's also super good by itself. Put it on a pork putt, cook it for a few hours. You'll be happy. Thank me later.
Right?
Lightning round.
Right. All right, lightning round. Continuing with Twisted Steel, Marty Plute's flavors, Lima Loca, or is it Lima Loca? We're not sure, but we love it.
It's Lima Loca.
Lima Loca, I call it Lima.
Is there lightning on this bottle?
It's a train.
Oh, it's a train.
It's a train. Let them know you showed up. All right, so.
Yeah, why do you love this so much?
Because it's wild and wonderful.
This is another one we're on our second bottle of, by the way.
Lima. Okay, Lima. We have, thank you, Sheila. Lima.
It's Lima Loca.
Who said Lima? Was that me or
Lima.
Anyway, Lima Loca. So wild and wonderful. I have tasted a lot of seasonings. Well, maybe not a lot, but many seasonings that have a lemon forward citrus flavor, but not too many with a lime forward citrus flavor. So that immediately set this one apart.
Yeah, that's the wildness. It's that citric punch from that acid, I think.
Right. But, you know, don't stop there. It's not just all about the lime. There are copious herbs, and those herbs really do a really nice, fresh, vibrant thing to wake up whatever you're cooking. Again, we do the flavor guide testing on pork chops. Those pork chops were rocking that night when we did that. Use it in things like, you know, you'd expect maybe Tex-Mex and guacamole and salsas and things, but
make it with the dip. Put it in your grill top creations, like if you're doing skirt steak or something like that.
My
it's
favorite.
a no-brainer.
beef fajitas. And when we publish the flavor guide, we recommend different proteins that we think it's particularly awesome on. And it was after
Grilled shrimp. Hmm.
and we added beef to that list after taking home a lot of steak reject steaks from SCA competitions, and getting tired of having steak and steak and steak and steak. So we cut those into strips, and we did fajitas, beef fajitas with lima loca.
That was kind of
Super
eye-opening
amazing.
for me.
Yeah.
Just from the way it hits your tongue when you taste it out of the bottle, you get that citric hit. It never occurred to me that something like that would be a great pairing for beef, but it really is. And I guess it makes sense. People who know way more about cooking and food science say, well, yeah, you got to have some acid in there to balance things out. Well, this one has it. It does actually work really, really well. And as Marty has told us before, pair that one with Heath Rail's Simple
Simple
Sister,
citrus.
and it gets even wilder. We've been able to try it since then, and it's
The
really
lime
something.
and the lemon together, like boom, do it.
It's like having a Sprite.
Lima loca.
No, it's not.
Moving on.
Moving
Tuffy
on.
Stone Daily Grind. So wow, this one.
Yeah, it's probably the most famous guy on the label of any of these bottles we have before us today. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody on the list. I know Tuffy's not here tonight, though, is he? No.
Maybe?
Tuffy never shows up for our events.
Aw.
Wonder why.
Tonight.
Well,
might
he
have been
does
the
make
night.
some pretty killer rubs, though, and this one hit me because there's not a whole lot of coffee rubs out there anymore. There was one I used to absolutely love. They quit making it, but over the time when I was able to acquire that, I became a real fan of coffee on beef. It's not something I had ever heard of doing before until I kind of learned the ropes. So here's what you do with this stuff. Well, there's a lot of stuff that you can do, but first thing to do, get you a really nice steak. Second thing to do, rub that thing with olive oil. Third, put this daily grind stuff on it and then leave it on the counter for 45 minutes. Go cook it, and you'll come back to just an absolutely amazing savory taste that's got, you'd think it would be bitter, and that bitterness is there, but it works in a way that's just absolutely incredible on a grilled steak. But don't stop there. What else is a good one?
Yeah, all that great on pork chops. Again, from our flavor guide testing. I remember my first taste of this. I thought, wow, it tastes fancy. And yeah, the professor makes amazing flavors. I agree with you, Mr. Freak. The coffee flavors are pretty cool, but add some cocoa flavor to the coffee, and now
That's
you're talking.
right. It's
Yeah.
got the cocoa in
Yeah.
it too. Yeah, that was kind of a sleeper wild ingredient. And one other thing I'll mention about this one, I don't believe it has any sugar at all, or if it does, it's just the tiniest amount. So super keto friendly for you guys looking to avoid the sugar sweetness, but that coffee brings a little bit of its own sweetness to it as well. But super good.
The professor, Tuffy Stone Daily Grind. All right. Time for Lane's Barbecue Honey Sriracha.
Don't let the tiny little bottle fool you. There's
It
a lot
is,
of flavor in there.
it is a smaller bottle than the traditional, shakers, but this
I like
packs
to
a lot of
call that
flavor.
I call that a normie bottle. Like normal people who buy barbecue seasonings, they want these little bottles. But barbecue people, this is like the small size.
So Lane's Honey Sriracha.
Sorry, ladies, I got off track.
My first impressions were obviously sweet, heat. The flavors were really rich, and they really ran deep. There was a nice umami quality. And before I even knew what it was, the first thing that I thought to do with the seasoning was put it in stir fries, like any different kind of stir fry you can think of with any different proteins, or just a veggie-based stir fry. This is really a beautiful seasoning. And, just a shout out to seasonings that, they're not just for barbecue or grilling, they're for everyday use. And Lane's Honey Sriracha is another great example.
I just got to give a shout out here for the second word in that equation, sriracha, because Americans love them some sriracha, right? There's like a sriracha shortage over the last couple of years. But to my knowledge, there's only 2 or 3 seasoning rubs out there that really lean into sriracha as their heat source. And that now that I kind of contemplate it, that really surprises me because it does work incredibly well in an awful lot of things. I don't know why people aren't using that as much. We'll have to ask them.
We'll have to ask him.
All right, are we to the end of the list?
But you know what they are using is You Are Behind Barbecue Green Chili Bacon Rub. So this is another seasoning that really stood out as different. And I think the words that I used literally from our flavor guide testing were wild looking blend, not barbecue flavors and off the beaten path.
Yeah, coming out of the bottle, you'll look at this stuff and it does not look like anything else that you've experienced in the barbecue seasoning world. It looks like a combination of like ground up peppers, but it has a very earthy green feeling to it.
Chunky. There's lots of different textures. And bacon.
Big chunks of dehydrated stuff. Bacon's in the,
so our buddy Steve put up a comment up on the screen, bacon, and I have to be honest, for me, the bacon flavors were a bit secondary.
Yeah, totally.
They didn't jump out to me as bacon. They jumped out to me as amazing and awesome, and it's quickly becoming an all-purpose rub in the kitchen. I would have never guessed that, to be honest.
You can put that on popcorn. It's totally good on that.
We've done popcorn. We did a non-competition style brisket, point and flat. We saw Kyle's video the other day of deviled eggs, and had to run those.
Yeah, we've been putting it on hard-boiled eggs. That's just like a thing we eat all the time because it's easy. But that's one of my go-tos to sprinkle on that. And it's the way those bits, those little dehydrated things, once they get in your mouth and they start to kind of puff up, and it just releases crazy flavors. The texture is really unlike anything else you've probably ever had, and this, I'm a little embarrassed to admit it, I've got a little bit of an addiction to this stuff. So oftentimes when it's sitting on the counter and this freak's not looking, I'll come by and pop the bottle and shake a little out of hand and just throw it in my mouth and let it sit there for those chunks to dehydrate, because I don't know what they are, but I'm like I said, I'm addicted to them.
You know, Mr. Freak, you like popcorn a lot, and oftentimes I'll put you in charge of popcorn at the end of the night. And it is really amazing.
I'm the popcorn cook. How about it?
Because I never know what you're going to throw at me. And bringing it back to the front of the list, Reaper on popcorn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of the 10, I probably had half of these on popcorn. I like a rub with a little bit of sweetness in it to kind of sprinkle in there. But yeah, the Reaper has become kind of my go-to for that. And then once the popcorn's gone and you're down to just those hard crunchy things in the bottom of the bowl, I'm like sifting those out and rubbing the left of the buttery rub out of the bottom of the bowl and just eating it. It's so good.
So many ways that you can use these rubs and seasonings. Don't let the names, barbecue.
Yeah, Reaper's kind of a scary name, but believe me, this won't hurt you. I mean, maybe a little baby's not going to like it. It might be a little too hot for that, but any self-respecting barbecue kid's going to be like, yeah, I can handle this, Dad. Thanks.
Mom.
All
Jeff. That's the
right.
2023 Essential Seasonings list.
You guys have crushed the list as always.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that everyone actually got to experience what it's like to have a conversation with the two of you about flavors.
Freaky.
Yeah, it
is absolutely freaky, but it's also so great. And you know what? And the love that the two of you are getting here is absolutely fantastic. Tell us a little bit about what's next for the Freaks. We're almost near the end of the year, but we know you already got a big 2024 plan. So tell this crew a little bit what's going on for next year.
Next up, holidays. We're going to try and impress the family with our fantastic cooking skills. But really what we're getting ready to do is drop our winter class. We're doing competition steak and ribs. We're looking to time that with Worlds coming in March. We'll be down there, but I don't know. Some people know, some don't. They're adding ribs, which has been our all-time best category through competition, to the SCA Worlds this year. So, we know a lot of steak folks are always looking to, see what other folks are doing, but really I want to do a deep dive on the rib side of thing Anne's going to take the steak side of thing, and we're going to have a fun little class. When is that?
January 20th in
January
Northbrook,
20th.
Illinois at Barbecue Pro Shop.
So that's the next big thing. After that, even before we're gearing up for Worlds, we're on a mission. I mean, if they're going to give out a trophy for ribs, everyone who's known me for a while knows that I'm coming for it. I may not get it, but I am definitely coming for it.
Hey, if they're going to give a trophy for steak,
right?
Show me some love.
That too.
Are you going to cook steak?
Mr. Freak.
She's determined to absolutely crush the field this year.
And do you think the two of you will be back at Memphis in May this year?
Well, we've been talking about it. Yeah, we are going to join forces again with our good buddy John Bobinet with Steamboat Barbecue. We've been cooking down with them for a few years in the whole hog category. We've made it as high as 3rd place in the world in hog, but we are all on a mission now. So we've already had our first team meetings and trying to figure out how to go get it. So we will be there. And then after that, who knows, it'll be a whirlwind of SCA events. We're going to do a lot of stuff at Barbecue Pro Shop this year on Friday afternoons, have some open houses down there once it starts to get a little bit warmer, where we can just meet folks all the time and showcase these flavors. You can see behind Jeff, he's got an awful impressive wall of stuff. And we just have so much fun grabbing something off the shelf, busting out some chicken wings or whatever it might be, and turning people on to new stuff.
Yeah, if you haven't come to see the wall in person, to see it with Ann and Brian in the house is something completely different. As you can imagine, they can talk to you forever about all these flavors. So
yeah,
we're really blessed and excited to have this whole thing be a part of the team and have something like this under ours. Because for us, it was really about creating content that was unique. And most importantly, I had to write every one of these descriptions. And so having the two of them be able to actually put something and some professional thought and tongue and taste behind it really makes that job a lot easier, and hopefully makes it easier for all of you to shop. And most importantly, pick out the flavors that you're looking for to hopefully win the big tournament or championship or cooking contest, or as we like to say, win your backyard.
Win in your backyard. You can definitely do that with these essential seasonings. Thank you so much for everyone who came out tonight. Blazing Star asked.
Yeah, he's got a good question.
Yeah.
Are sauces in the future?
I'll say that sauces are on the flavor guide roadmap.
Yes, they have. And we have spent plenty of time trying to figure out how would we decode those. So if you have some ideas for us there, please send us your thoughts on what are the essential elements of sauces. Tanginess, sweetness, viscosity. We've talked about these things. So we're thinking about it. Help us out. Help us get over the finish line with what do you think you need in a sauce decoder?
And congratulations to all of the amazing flavor makers and our partners and our SCA family and our barbecue family, the makers of the 2023 Essential Seasonings list. Check it out at Barbecue Pro Shop, home of the Factory Team Flavor Guide.
They have different amounts of bars, but I give them all 5 stars.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
Happy holidays.
Good night.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.